Hello everyone, welcome to another session of AP Human Geography with Mr. Elrod. Today we're just going to be doing a week in review, talking about some of the things we discussed in class this week. Hopefully if you're in my class, it's just kind of a recap. If you're not, if you're sitting out there somewhere in the internets or the interwebs, hopefully this is something that you can use, that you find helpful, you can be useful to you. If you were teachers out there, whatever your class structure is, maybe this should just provide some material for you, some things to think about as you're going throughout the year. So we're in Unit 1 talking about the basics of geography. So at the very beginning of the week, we started off talking about maps, and we were kind of carrying over from our conversation of last week, and we were going over the different types of maps. And so we started off talking about the different types of thematic maps. Really, when we're talking about maps, one of the significant things to discuss is the way that information and data is portrayed on the different types of thematic maps, whether we're talking about the proportional symbol, choropleth, cartogram, dot density map, so forth and so on. And so make sure that you look at each of those types of maps, look at the different ways that the data is displayed using the thematic map. And not only do you look at the information that's displayed and how it's displayed, you also want to make sure you understand the information that is not there as you're looking at those different types of maps. So the ways that the different types of maps can be manipulated based upon the way that the information and the data is displayed. Next, we went into a conversation on globalization. Globalization is a key portion of the course, this idea of the increasing interconnectedness of the world. Whether that's good or bad, we watched a couple of videos discussing both the positive and the negative effects of globalization. We talked about some of the reasons why some people consider globalization to be good, or why they might consider globalization to be bad. Of course, those who look on the good side look at the benefits that we've had from globalization in terms of increased economic trade and the development that comes from the increased economic interconnectedness that we have in our world. Transmission of information, technology, learning, ideas that we're able to get across to one another through the use of things like the internet and of course the cell phones and things along those lines. Then of course the negative elements of globalization, whether we're talking about development and the use of natural resources and the use of scarce resources, the use of energy, and with increased energy consumption, talking about the emission of carbon dioxide, things along those lines. Talking about conflicts that take place in the world as a result of globalization and increased interaction between peoples. And so there is that debate that goes on between those who believe that globalization is good and those who maybe feel that the negative of globalization outweighs any of the positive things that we could get from it. In the very end of the week, one of the things that we're doing differently this year is we're introducing Chapter 9 from Rubenstein a little bit earlier in the year, talking about development. Now, the reason that we're doing that is because we talk about development all year long. We talk about more developed countries, less developed countries. And so we just felt like this would be a better time to introduce the concept of development, what exactly that means. We talked about the Human Development Index, or the 4 data points that are used as a part of the Human Development Index. Of course, we have a gross national income per capita. You have the mean years of schooling, the expected years of schooling, and then life expectancy that the United Nations is going to use in order to get their scores on the Human Development Index. And then we read an article and had a conversation about the distribution of poverty and wealth in the world. It's an article called "The Geography of Poverty and Wealth." Author argues from a perspective the geography is going to play a huge role in the economic development of a country, and he points out how the geographic landscape is going to impact things like the ability to trade through coastlines or navigable rivers, talking about climate and how tropical climates and desert climates make it very difficult for people, especially based upon diseases in tropical climates and the inability to grow crops in whether we're talking about desert or tropical climates. And then the conditions for which a country is able to grow agricultural surpluses, and talking about primarily the temperate zones and their ability to grow abundant crop resources, specifically looking at the different types of cereal crops that we see around the world, which are really the staple of civilization and human populations. So those are the topics that we covered over the course of the week. Hopefully that just provides you kind of a brief review of the things that we've discussed. Certainly, if you have any questions, feel free to post those to me on YouTube or send me an email. And as always, I hope to see you next time.